The Young and the Restless Spoilers Tuesday full episode September 10, 2024. Victor Newman, known for his relentless drive and strategic prowess, found himself in unfamiliar territory, uncertainty. His plan to defeat Billy Abbott at Chancellor Abbott was stalling, and it wasn't due to lack of effort. Billy had garnered significant support from key shareholders, and many of them were waiting for Jill's return before making any major decisions. This left Victor in a precarious position. He wanted to secure control, but buying off the shareholders wasn't feasible at the moment. His typical approach of using wealth and influence to manipulate the board wasn't going to work this time, and the frustration was beginning to show. Adding to his irritation was Lily, who had become increasingly impatient with the slow progress. Every day, she urged Victor to push the plan forward, to act now before Billy could further entrench himself at Chancellor Abbott. But Victor didn't take kindly to being rushed, especially by someone he saw as an overly eager novice. "Lily, stay quiet and wait for the results," he snapped during one of their heated conversations. "Don't be foolish and let your ambition get in the way." His words stung, but Lily's frustration wasn't entirely misplaced. She had placed her trust in Victor, and now it seemed he was dragging his feet. What she didn't know was that Victor's mind was already moving in a different direction, toward Chance. In Victor's eyes, Chance was proving to be a far more reliable ally than Lily. Not only was he loyal, but he also had the potential to sway the shareholders who were on the fence. Victor's interest in Chance grew, and as a result, he began subtly edging Lily out of the alliance. This shift in allegiance made Lily begin to realize the truth of what Devon had been warning her about all along. Victor was a man who thought only of himself, always willing to discard those who no longer served his interests. Devon had cautioned Lily numerous times not to get too close to Victor, not to trust him, and now it seemed his warnings were coming to fruition. Victor's decision to align with Chance over her felt like betrayal, but more than that, it opened Lily's eyes to just how little control she had in this game. She was expendable, and Victor's ruthless nature would ensure that she was discarded the moment she stopped being useful. As the tension between Victor, Lily, and Billy continued to simmer, another crisis was unfolding in Genoa City, one that struck much closer to home for Nick Newman. His concern for Sharon had reached a breaking point. Sharon was spiraling, her behavior growing more erratic by the day. She had become obsessed with Cameron, a man from her past, and began hallucinating conversations with him. Despite Nick's best efforts to reach out to her, Sharon had withdrawn, refusing to listen to anyone. Nick was at his wits' end. He had always been Sharon's rock during difficult times, but now he was powerless to stop her from self-destructing. Every time he tried to help, Sharon would push him away, retreating further into her delusions. Watching her deteriorate like this was agonizing, and Nick didn't know how to handle it. He couldn't force her to seek help, but he also couldn't stand by and watch her continue down this dangerous path. Sharon's daughters, Faith and Mariah, were just as desperate to help their mother. They knew Sharon was in deep trouble, but every attempt to intervene had been met with resistance. Sharon wasn't herself anymore. She was consumed by her hallucinations and paranoia, convinced that Cameron was still lurking in the shadows, waiting to strike. Faith and Mariah had tried everything, talking to her, reasoning with her, even bringing in professional help, but nothing had worked. Sharon's mind was slipping away, and they feared that if something didn't change soon, they would lose her for good. It was clear that Sharon was suffering from bipolar disorder, a condition that had gone untreated for too long. Her manic episodes were becoming more frequent and more intense, and without proper care, the situation was only going to get worse. The family knew that they couldn't tackle this alone anymore. They needed to come together, along with Sharon's friends and loved ones, to create a solid plan to address her mental health crisis. But that was easier said than done. The town of Genoa City was already in turmoil, with power struggles, betrayals, and business rivalries brewing at every corner. But Sharon's condition added a layer of personal tragedy to the chaos. For Nick, this wasn't just about helping his ex-wife, it was about saving the mother of his children, the woman he had loved and still cared for deeply. But Sharon, lost in her hallucinations and paranoia, couldn't see the damage she was doing to herself or to those who loved her. The revelation of Victor Newman secretly owning Glissade sent shockwaves through Genoa City. It was a power move, one that left Nate and Devon seething with anger. They had worked closely on projects tied to Glissade, completely unaware of Victor's quiet acquisition. For Nate, who had recently allied himself with Victor, this betrayal was personal. He thought he was part of Victor's inner circle, someone the patriarch could trust. But it was becoming clear that in Victor's world, no one was truly an equal, everyone was a pawn in his larger game. Devin, on the other hand, felt a different kind of rage. He had never fully trusted Victor and had warned others about getting too close to him. Now, seeing how Victor had played the situation from behind the scenes, Devin's worst fears were confirmed. He wanted justice, but more than that, he wanted to see Victor face the consequences of his manipulation. However, deep down, Devin knew that going head-to-head with Victor Newman was like fighting a battle that could never truly be won. Jack, though surprised, wasn't completely caught off guard. He had his suspicions about Victor's growing interest in Glissade and had sensed something was brewing. Over the years, Jack had learned never to underestimate Victor's ability to swoop in and gain control, and this situation was no different. Still, even with his suspicions confirmed, the sting of defeat lingered. Victor had outmaneuvered everyone, yet again. In the midst of this corporate upheaval, Tucker McCall made a sudden and shocking decision to leave Genoa City. Tucker had been a wild card for months, unpredictable and often scheming, but his departure left many, especially Audra, reeling. Audra had long believed she would inherit Tucker's fortune or at least his business interests. She had positioned herself as his heir, ready to take the reins once Tucker stepped down. But now, Tucker was gone, and he hadn't left her anything. It was as if she had been erased from his plans altogether. The true shock came when it was revealed that Victor had swooped in to buy Glissade, a deal that no one had seen coming. Audra, who had believed she was on the cusp of inheriting everything, was left with nothing, as Victor quietly solidified his grip on the company. This revelation hit Kyle especially hard. Kyle, who had been away from Jabot and considering a new path, was stunned by how quickly things had changed. He had always envisioned his future at Jabot, a place he thought would remain stable and welcoming. But now, with the chaos surrounding Victor and Glissade, Kyle realized that Jabot was no longer the sanctuary he remembered. It was clear to Kyle that something darker was brewing at Jabot, and the company was about to be caught in a storm of corporate intrigue and betrayal. This wasn't the smooth transition he had imagined, it was a battlefield. Kyle knew he needed to return to Jabot, but the question remained, was it too late to fix the mess that had already begun? As the business world spiraled into chaos, personal crises continued to unfold in the lives of Genoa City's residents. Nick and Mariah had recently learned the harsh truth about Sharon's mental health. Sharon had stopped taking her medication, the one thing that had been keeping her stable. Without it, she had descended into paranoia and instability, seeing visions of Cameron and spiraling further into delusion. Nick was devastated. Sharon had always been strong, resilient, but this was different. She was a danger to herself, and Nick couldn't bear the thought of losing her, especially knowing that her condition was treatable if only she would accept help. But Sharon wasn't listening to reason. She refused to acknowledge her illness, and every attempt Nick made to reach her seemed to push her further away. Mariah, too, was struggling with how to help her mother. She had been down this road herself, she knew the dark and terrifying experience of mental illness all too well. Mariah had spent time in a psychiatric hospital, and the memories of those days still haunted her. The sterile halls, the isolation, the feeling of being trapped inside her own mind, it was an experience she wouldn't wish on anyone, especially not her mother. But that was exactly what Mariah feared Sharon was heading toward. Without treatment, Sharon's condition would only worsen, and the possibility of hospitalization loomed large. The thought of putting Sharon in the same place Mariah had been terrified her. Could she really make that decision for her mother? Could she subject Sharon to the same nightmare she had lived through? Mariah didn't want Sharon to feel abandoned or broken. She wanted to protect her, to shield her from the pain of mental illness, but Mariah also knew that Sharon needed more help than she could offer on her own. The entire family, Nick, Faith, and even Ray, needed to come together to form a plan.